Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the IWillAim podcast, Retirement with Bob Laura. Get ready to learn the importance of retirement planning as you plan your future. Welcome, Bob. How are you doing today?
Great. Well, excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Can you do a quick intro about yourself?
Oh my gosh, hard questions. Basically, I'm a retirement nerd. It's what I spend all my time doing, and really more so focused on the psychology. Before I got into financial services, I was a social worker. Then I got into financial service. Been doing that for 25 years, and I really realized that there's plenty of people with plenty of money to retire, but there are just some really big gaps on the psychology, especially for couples making that transition together. And so I've really committed the last 16 years to focusing on how do we help people with the non-financial pieces like replace your work identity, fill your time, and we do that with obviously training, articles, workbooks, assessments, all that fun stuff. So there's a quick route for you.
Well, thank you for the quick intro. So let's deep dive in. Bob, retirement is a major life transition, and there are some common misconceptions people have about retirement. And how do you help them overcome this challenge of not knowing fully about retirement? This video is sponsored by BetterHelp. As spring approaches, I've noticed that my anxiety tends to increase during this time. The longer days and the pressure to be more active can be overwhelming. I often find myself asking questions like, why do I feel anxious every time they don't text me back? And why do all our conversations turn into argument? Those thoughts can be consuming, making it challenging to enjoy the season's renewal. It's during this time that seeking support becomes essential. That's where BetterHelp comes in. They can connect you with a therapist to help you navigate this feeling. The majority of BetterHelp members seek support for anxiety, and 69% report improved anxiety symptoms after 6 weeks of therapy. Getting started is simple. Fill out a questionnaire and be matched with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. If it's not the right fit, you can switch therapists at no extra cost. With 7,000 reviews and a 4.3-star rating on Trusted Pilot, it's a platform you can trust. Let BetterHelp help you rule your anxiety so it doesn't rule you. Click on the link below in the description or go to betterhelp.com/Will Lukang and get 10% off your first month of therapy.
Well, we try to be proactive about it, right? I mean, you know this just as well. Just um, everyone thinks retirement is this fun, wonderful place and just magically unfolds. And that's just not the case. And so a lot of times it's just finding ways to disrupt their patterns, right? To get them thinking differently. Because again, a lot of people are like, well, I don't need help with retirement because it's this giant 30-year vacation that's all fun. And so, with whether it's the assessment or with articles or guides or even a book like my Retirement Intelligence, it's just to wake people up to the reality of how significant the change is. And I don't think it's bad that it's a change, but it's when these simultaneous levels of change hit people. So it's not just you're leaving work, but you're leaving your work friends, you're spending more time at home, you don't have the same structure and routine. And so this stuff can pile up. And again, I think the hard part, and I'm sure you would agree, Will, is talking about it. So because you
Yes.
have enough money not to retire and the time to do what you want, you're supposed to be happy. And if you're not, who do you tell? Because they'll think you're crazy.
Thank you for sharing the misconception. I think my next question is really around why you transitioned to be a retirement coach expert, right? What inspired you to become a retirement coach, and how has that shaped the way you approach the practice?
It was a lot of things. Um, Really, just client examples. I mean, I can remember one situation where I was talking to uh, a friend's dad, and he was already retired, and we were helping him kind of remodel my buddy's house. His dad came into town, and I just, said to him, I said, "It must be amazing to be retired and have all this time and the resources to help your son." Like, just kind of hinting at retirement must be awesome. And he stopped me dead in my tracks. He says, "Bob, don't ever retire because you won't mean anything to anyone anymore." And I was like, "What do you mean?" Like, this was probably 15, 16 years ago. I'm like, retirement's the holy grail. Like that's like the crowning achievement of life, and you're telling me it's not. And so it was situations like that, and then really seeing people struggle. One time I saw a client. He came to my office drunk. It was 10 o'clock in the morning, and he had a pickup truck, and this was like 10 years ago, so it's illegal to drink and drive. But
Yeah.
he had a six pack right in his container, and his wife had told me previously that she was not willing to retire because she didn't want to be around him and his drinking. And so those things really woke me up that, whoa, there's just more going on here than having enough money and replacing your paycheck.
Wow, that's a powerful story. The way the one you shared. Let's talk more about. You talk about the psychology of retirement, which people normally don't understand. They always think about money. I myself is one of them. I always thought about money until I actually attended your program and become certified. But now I think retirements can sometimes, like you said, trigger feeling of loss of purpose and identity. How do you guide your clients through the process of knowing what they want to be someday?
It's not easy, and it takes time. Richard Leiter, who I'm good friends with, I was taught he's a big purpose guy, and he talked about it the other day. He really said that purpose, you don't discover it or find it, you unlock it. And I think, and from the work we've done, Will, like it really is getting people off autopilot, and I think that's the hardest thing is that people have been. They're going to work. They have this routine and structure. They're checking boxes off us, and we really have to stop and get them to pause and really think about it. We did some research with the Retirement Coaches Association, which you're a part of, that really looked at how long is the honeymoon period. Now, I thought everyone would just answer 3 or 6 months, but 51% of the people said it's a year or longer. And that's really a signal to me that people are just like sprinting to get to this finish line of retirement, but then they think they're done. And that's where the trouble comes in is like, okay, you made it, but now you're like, you can't not do anything. You've really got to be pursuing these things. And I'll say the biggest mistake I've seen people make is they procrastinate until retirement to try to create their ideal life. And it's kind of like a New Year's resolution, right? What do we do before Christmas and the New Year? We spend money, we eat food. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to stop spending money and eating food. And so people are like, oh, when I retire, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be connected with my family. I'm going to do this. I'm like, no, you're not. You're not going to do any of those. You're going to do what you already do. And so I think it's really just helping people recognize and then reassess. One of the things I say, there's a great story about Michelangelo, and he said, well, someone asked him supposedly, how do you carve these beautiful statues? And his response was, well, I don't carve them. God already put the important stuff in there, and I just chisel the other stuff away. And so that's what I really think retirement coaching is. We chisel the layers of life and work that got built up to really find out who you are and what's important. And so it's a process, but you know this as well. That's what I like about someone who's trained, legitimately trained as a retirement coach, is they have a process. It's not just, hey, Will, meet me at the coffee shop and I'll give you a 45-minute Tony Robbins speech. There's much more. It's more personalized than just, hey, here you go, good luck.
It's more depth of information and knowledge that they would gain. And I love the analogy of you share about Michelangelo, that we're just chipping like off and helping them discover who they are. As we talk about retirement coaching, without giving out the secret sauce, what are the key elements of retirement coaching that we could define as a successful retirement plan?
Well, great point. So one of the simple questions, the way I like to frame everything is, how will you know if you're winning at retirement?
Mm.
And it's an interesting question that a lot of people can't answer. And so, again, if you're listening to this show, it's like, okay, if I gave you a piece of paper and Will said, hey, write down how you know if you'll be winning at retirement, it's hard for people to do. Most people would write down, hey, I got to replace my paycheck and I guess babysit my grandkids or see my kids or play golf or something. But I think we all know how to win at work or even win with our family, but we haven't really been taught how to win at retirement. And so for me, it's really about how do we replace your work identity? Because no matter what, like you are drawn to your work, and even if you hate your work, it still gives you purpose and direction. So replacing your work identity, filling your time with meaningful tasks. One of my favorite things is that, like, and you know this too, like you ask someone, how's retirement going? Oh, great, I'm busier than ever. I wish I'd have done it before. Busy doesn't mean it's meaningful or good.
Yes.
There's a lot of people who are just caught up, and so I think it really is meaningful tasks. Then staying physically and mentally active. I mean, you know, as a consultant, as a smart guy, you're out making things happen. Previously and now, no one wants your opinion. Like, you know, everyone's coming to you for everything, and now they don't need you.
That's a huge impact on your persona, right? Being the important person, and then all of a sudden, not that you're irrelevant, but no one comes to you for anything anymore. And
Well,
thank you for
yeah, especially it's not like your kids or your friends. Like if you're working for a large organization and you're consulting with other organizations, like you are, you know, if you're a partner at a firm or senior management, it's like you're important, and then all of a sudden you're like not. So again, I think it really is that looking at replacing your work identity, filling your time, staying relevant and connected. I think that's just the other thing. A lot of people don't think about their friendships and who they're going to socialize with. And they think they're going to stay connected at work, but it's not that easy to do. And then, obviously, just in my opinion, expressing your spiritual beliefs, whatever that is, whether that's religious or just being in nature. And then it's the financial, right? And that's what I think people get wrong is financial is really only about 20% of the picture. In total, we have 100%, but it's one piece of the pie. It's important, but it's also easier to do if you do the non-financial first, because if your values are clear, your decisions are easy. And you know, that's what we try to do is really just get reacquainted with the person, help them understand what's important, and then apply the financial to their life.
And also, by doing so, you like you said, I love the concept of winning in retirement. If you do those things and you take care of the non-financial one, you could make adjustment on your financial to meet the needs and make you happy. So
Well,
essentially, you're winning.
and I think too, like if you think about, and this is what I say a lot of times, like think of someone who you know who is a successful retiree, and what you're really going to find is that they're successful because they have checkbox replace work identity, checkbox fill their time with meaningful tasks, checkbox stay relevant, connected, physically act. You know, so there is this little process, but it's not common knowledge, and I think people think it is, and so I think a lot of people suffer in silence because you can't tell anyone, "Hey, retirement isn't going like I thought." But that's why there are obviously retirement coaches, because you not only have someone to talk to, but someone who's trained in it and understands why it's happening and can explain it to you. Because you don't, I mean, just here, let me wave my wand. Will, you're fixed. You know, it's like it's a process that you go through, which I think is really important.
We talk about success story. Can you share a success story of someone you work with?
Yeah, I'll share a couple. This one actually wasn't someone I worked with, but it was really interesting because a lady going through the coaching program to become a coach, she goes, "Oh my gosh, Bob, I was really nervous. I was working with a client in my practice coaching, and they decided not to retire. Is that bad?" And I'm like, "No, it's actually really good because."
Yeah.
I think that's what happens to a lot of people is people think that retirement's a do or die type of decision, that you got to get it right or else. And sometimes if you don't really understand what you're giving up and what you're leaving behind, you can regret that transition. And so just thinking through, not just, yes, I'm going to gain time and freedom, but what are you going to do and are you ready to give that up? In another case, I had a couple who had an age difference. So the husband was 64 and she was 58, and he was already retired, and they couldn't decide if she should retire. Now, that's a decent age gap, and in typical fashion, it was about the dollars and cents. Well,
Yeah.
when so and so turns 62, at least they get Social Security, and
Yeah.
then we'll be able to do, Medicare, at 65. And, but he was not in great health. And so waiting 4 or 5 more years now puts him, he was turning 65 actually, at 69 and
Yeah.
her at 62. And so what I really took them through was just an exercise that was like, what are you going to regret in the next 1, 2, or 3 years? And what do you want to avoid regretting? And by just taking that time and then writing down the regrets, we could then turn them into goals. And one of their big goals was RVing across the country. But again, there's always a reason not to buy the RV, or we should procrastinate, But again, when they really sat down, and here's the key, when they really wrote it down, because that's really, because I think we all think of stuff and we think we're real smart. But when you write it on a piece of paper and you say, I don't want to miss this time. I don't want to not go to the national parks across the country because one of our health is not good. And so they retired. She retired that next year and they went on their trip. And again, I think it's just that third party disruption to kind of reframe or rethink about it that helped them really prioritize what was important.
It's amazing how, like, you ask a simple question of what would you regret, right, or miss if you don't retire. And I think that then create a ripple effect of decision that they made, that they go through. And I really do agree with you that writing your thoughts down is so powerful, because it went from sort of concept or in your head into physical form. And now you could take a look at it and say, hey, evaluate it properly. And I totally agree with you on that one. Thank you for your time, Bob. I really appreciate you. Can you share with my audience how do they reach you if they
Yeah,
want
so the
if they
easiest
want to
thing.
reach out to you or attend one of your events?
Yeah, so if you just search Robert Laura, all my stuff will come up. But Certified Professional Retirement Coach is the designation that we offer. Retirement Coaches Association, if you're interested in this, kind of modernizing retirement and being part of the group that's really changing the industry like you. We've got research, we've got symposiums and conferences. And so check those pieces out. And then my new book at Amazon is Retirement Intelligence. It's 100 pages. It's
Do you have the
14.5.
book with you? Do you have the book with you?
I do have it over.
Yes,
Slides over.
show it on the screen.
Um, Sorry, I don't usually keep my. But yeah, it just looks like this. But
There you
it's
go.
really, it's 100 pages. It's big print. And again, it's really my most important work, and it captures a lot of the, some of the stuff that we cover, but it goes much deeper.
Thank you, Bob, for your time. I really appreciate you coming to my podcast today and sharing your knowledge and expertise. Have a good day.
You too, Will. Thank you.